Like today with everything happening and just coming hot, and I decided to take a breath. You know what? Everybody take a breath. Everybody, I don't know if you are into this. Maybe just do a little set right there, and then hold it for 5 or 6 seconds, and exhale. It's too much. It's too much. Today's too much. Every day, I know every day is too much. This feels like much more than too much. I don't know. Every single day. I don't even know where to begin. Last night at a town hall meeting, just your run-of-the-mill town hall meeting in Minneapolis, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was talking about how Kristi Noem needs to be impeached and removed. She needs to be fired. And this guy lunges at her, apparently has a syringe, and he squirts the fluid from that onto her. And if you haven't seen the video, she goes at him. And there are a lot of folks making comments about this. She kind of is just for a second and then lunge, and she winds up to clock him. And for folks who don't understand, there are people, and believe it or not, that includes women. I know that's hard to believe, because some of us have the instinct to go forward. Some people have fight, flight, freeze, right? She has fight. Some people just have that. I mean, I don't understand why this is even a question that she wouldn't be capable of her brain going, I need to get this guy for whatever reason, to protect myself, to protect the people around us. I'm just, at any rate, they grab him, and she said, and she calls him language that I can't, okay, she uses language that I cannot use, but she said the effing a-hole. Did I say that okay? Yeah, that's what she said. And basically said she wanted to continue the meeting because they wanted to have her checked out. For whatever reason, and I don't know if someone squirted some fluid at me, if I would think, what was that? But it was in a syringe. So presumably he was going to try to inject her with it, and just panicked and got so angry about her saying that Kristi Noem needs to be fired. If that's what got him up and moving, and just squirted it instead of jabbing her with it. But at any rate, everyone, I don't understand, because immediately Trump, Drowsy Donnie, said that she sprayed herself, right? Yeah. Okay, he said she sprayed herself, which of course then became the MAGA story. It's a whole thing about how she made and here's the thing, folks, we've said this so many times. Every accusation is a confession. Why would that be the first thing you think is the option? Because here's what I think. Your tapioca brain is sliding around remembering what maybe you have done. If we're just saying things, if we're just saying she staged it, and these when they were wearing Kotex pads on their ears, by the way, remember he switched ears, the cartilage has grown back, but we're not allowed to say that? Are you kidding me? At any rate, and they have, look, it's his DOJ, his FBI, if that's really what you think might have happened. She is she's an elected in a federal office. They can get to the bottom of that, right? I'm just saying. But already they have information from his Facebook posts, from his neighbors, from friends. He messaged somebody, I'm probably going to get arrested tonight. He's pro-Trump. He has posted things about anti-Biden, all kinds of things. And people are sharing pictures of him and his kids, because his kids are, they express themselves in ways that are contrary to MAGA, like that. All this stuff. At any rate, which, if you're online, just be mindful and aware. Like if the crap comes past you, whether it's about Alex Preddy or about Renee Good, about the instance, this attack on Ilhan Omar, please, I'm sorry, I was practicing her name this morning to Ilhan, because sometimes people say it wrong on purpose, and then I accidentally do it. You know how terrible I can be sometimes. Congresswoman Omar. Just block the people who are putting the lies out there, who are using AI. There's just all kinds of information today that's getting worse. There's a momentum to smearing all of these people. And here's the thing. I get that there are also bots on the left. Can folks see there are some conservative content creators, some social media folks out there, conservative ones, who are saying, as gun rights advocates, that taking away the right to have a gun in a public space, regardless of where, if it's an open carry state like Minnesota, they are saying that right, when they take that right away from someone, even if you disagree with them, and he said, I don't agree with where this guy Patti was coming from, and he says, and this is not just one, for some reason I'm ending up on the conservative side of social media, and I suspect that's because of the people who are commenting on my page. I don't know how the algorithm works. Algorithms, I can't even say that. See, but it's getting aggressive out there. And today, with the attack on Congresswoman Omar, Trump said, after he said she probably sprayed herself, he goes, knowing her, and then he said, I don't think about her. I pulled up social media posts from him on Truth Social, 4 in the last month or so, right? With huge paragraphs about her, about making money, about fraud, about where she comes from. And then hours before she was attacked, he brings up her name and the whole crowd boos. Why do they boo? Because he's already told them to hate her. He's already vilified. He's already stirred that pot. And he talked about her yesterday. But I don't think about her. What? Where's the logic? I'm looking under the paper. I'm looking all over the studio for the logic. And I get it. Like I said, his cheese is slid off the cracker. And that's neither here nor there. So there's that. The 2 federal agents who shot and killed Alex Patti apparently have been suspended or on paid time off or something. I don't know. Okay. Isn't that traditionally, or isn't that policy for law enforcement, that if you're involved in a shooting that you no longer are on the streets? There's that. There's so many things that happen. Oh my God. Then so the FBI sent 25 agents to raid the election offices in Fulton County, which has been at the center of the election fraud of 2020. An election that Trump lost. I don't know how many times I got to tell some people this, but he lost. And his lawyers tried on 32 occasions in court to overturn that election. They went 0 for 32, which is a shutout. And they still want to go back and litigate 22. They want to find fraud. You had 5 years. You had so many resources, all the money. You could do your own investigations. You didn't find any fraud. So they have requested from 44 states voter information. They want Social Security numbers. They want driver's license numbers. And they've told Minnesota, Attorney General Pam Bondi has told Minnesota, hey, that's, those bodies that are piling up, we'll make it stop if you maybe turn over some information. Well, that's not even all the news today. And then there were committee hearings, and now I have to agree with Rand Paul. What the frickin' frack is happening? He asked Marco Rubio if a foreign country, if another country came in and took Trump out of office, removed him, took him into custody, would that be an act of war? And Marco Rubio's like, well, it was only 4.5 hours, and we didn't know it. Blah blah blah. No, I get that when they're asked a yes or no question, it has to be this massive tap dance. But how is that not? How would that not be an act of war? He's like, well, we had a warrant. Yeah, that's what Rand Paul said. If somebody else said they had a warrant to arrest Donald Trump and they came and they took him away, took him into custody, would that be an act of war? How would we react? And if they installed their own form of government, if they said we are not leading this country, would that be an act of war? No. It is an act of war. How is that? Okay, there's another thing. I mentioned that there are conservative content creators that are it's not about convincing folks to be Democrats. Because I wouldn't be if the Democrats started doing the things that the MAGA portion of the Republican Party are doing now. I would not be a Democrat. If people were violating the Fourth Amendment and busting down doors without a warrant, I would not be a Democrat. I would also be an independent. right now, the party that is doing, and look, I am ticked off. Yesterday, when we were talking to the reporter from the reporter Rico Moore, who wrote about what's happening with these detention centers, he did research on how in Washington and Tacoma, the property has so many pollutants and toxins that these detainees are being exposed to. But it's been like that for decades under multiple administrations. Right, this Border Patrol was under Bush Jr., under Obama, under Trump, under Biden, and they didn't do enough to fix it, where we have these renegade agents. But what bothered me in the middle of that conversation with the reporter yesterday was how much money is being made off these detention centers, how much money Border Patrol agents get. They get bonuses, they get per detainee, per activity, they do the paperwork, they get more money. You guys, we've all been convinced, right? And I defend people coming here, Venezuelans who've been coming here because, again, okay, this is like logic. I'm gonna be very clumsy with this, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to tie this all together. There's not gonna be a neat bow, but I'm working through it, folks. Venezuelans have been coming to the United States, fleeing the conditions, the situation in Venezuela. When they got here under Biden, nobody wanted them here. They get to send them back, and what do they do in Texas? They sent them to all the sanctuary cities because they knew it would cause chaos and have an impact on our elections, on our communities, on our states, right? And look, we were spending money hand over fist with ridiculous amounts of payment being given to the folks that were manning these facilities where we were trying to have folks at least have temporary housing, and it was exorbitant. Okay, so then when they take the leader of Venezuela out and they show us images of Venezuelans celebrating, all of MAGA on my timeline was like, see, it was horrible conditions they were under. Yes, that's why they were coming to the United States, and you didn't want them here. So at any rate, these are what I'm saying is these are the games that the corporations, the billionaires are playing with all of us, right? They force the people who want to help those who are suffering, right? The Venezuelans who are coming here, they were sleeping out in the cold. We're like, give them shelter, and we throw money at it. And the Republicans then are like, well, we got to get them out, throw money at it. So there's just the people making money off of it. Okay, like I said, I knew that was going to be clumsy. So I thank my sponsors for paying for that. I apologize. I'll make a graph at some point, but this is making me feel a little bit like a beautiful mind. I'm going to have pictures and strings and all kinds of things at some point. At any rate, thank you to Pride Coffee Roasters. We have a market coming up this Sunday where I cannot wait to be around folks in my community and buy wonderful items like fresh produce and handmade goods. Oh my God, I love the stuff from Collective. And of course, the fresh roasted coffee beans from Pride Coffee Roasters. Go to pridecoffeeroasters.com. And if you can't make it to the market, you can put an order in for fresh roasted single origin beans. Again, that's pridecoffeeroasters.com. And please, you can even consider putting in a subscription. You get beans delivered to your house every single month, and maybe pick up some of their wonderful swag available at pridecoffeeroasters.com. Also encourage you to make an appointment with Source Solar. Peter Sorellis will walk you through the process of, maybe getting solar panels on your house or business. Go to source.solar. And coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll have the Up North podcast with Kirk Bangstad and Minocqua Brewing Company. Go to minocquabrewingcompany.com. I would love it if you checked out my latest piece. I write a column there on their Substack. Please be a subscriber to the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. If you're a paying subscriber, that would be even more lovely. We would appreciate that. Go to minocquabrewingcompany.com for some of the great progressive beers they have there. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150. The phone lines are open. Walk me through it, folks. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Dr. Kristen Lyerly, and I'm bringing you real conversations about the issues that matter most. Healthcare, politics, culture, you name it. Every week, I sit down with newsmakers and friends, and we break down what's happening and what it means for you. It's smart, it's fun, and it's unapologetically progressive. So join me on Saturday at 5 p.m. right here on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. The Dr. Kristen Lyerly Show. Let's do this.
Interested in debt-free education? It's one benefit of apprenticeship with Plumbers Local 130 UA of the greater Chicagoland area. These days, high school seniors need to rethink going to a four-year college and creating debt with no plan in sight. Students and their parents need to think about learning a trade that pays you to learn and create a career. Being part of Plumbers Local Union 130 UA achieves those goals. As an apprentice, you receive great wages, great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription drug, vision and hearing, no college debt, 2 pensions, and access to union wellness centers and eye care with 0 deductibles and 0 copays. Admission to the Plumbing Apprenticeship Program ends February 13th or with the first 2,000 submissions. Applicants have to be 18 years old and have a high school diploma or a GED certificate. See the full list of requirements and qualifications and apply for your future now at apply.jac130.org.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now.
All right, let's hit it.
At 773-763-9278.
I got a lot to say.
It's Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
I'm trying to take deep breaths. I've been practicing some Buddhism lately, and one of the things is to wake up and be mindful and be grateful and to start doing some breathing. But that doesn't always work. Let me grab some of these texts before we go to our phone calls. We have 773-763-9278. You can call or text. I was talking about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. See, I'm talking too fast. Slow down. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was attacked yesterday, and she lunged back and had her fist raised. And a listener from Evanston says, that would be my first response. Go after him. I react first and think later after stuff calms down. See, same thing. Some of us just have, I unfortunately have a fight mode. I don't know if the Buddhism will help with that. We also have a texter from, with the ear growing back. Does that mean he can now do commercials for the numerical ear? Maybe. And we have Patty. These Republicans are wannabe warriors because they have small, I think that means peppies. I think she's trying to say they have small peppies, or they're trying to say they have small peppies and tiny grenades. Oh, love you guys too. That's Casey. And also sending love to you. They say, Lady B, you are the heart that pumps the blood there. Just, thank you so much. Let's go to Jim on the phone. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patty. First of all, Omar was very fortunate it wasn't something more serious than that syringe. And they did blind a guy, or this happened in Santa Ana about a week and a half ago. He was shot by ICE with they're using some new, and he was blinded in one eye, 6 hours in surgery, and the surgeon said that it came within inches of his vital organ where he would have bled out on the street. God. But Patty, now, I had a friend who was an optometrist, and I was in a barroom brawl one day, and he was innocent, and I knew the joint was going to go up and grab. So I said, get the car, move it around to the front of the bar because this joint's going up, and I'm outnumbered her, 15-1. So, but anyway, make a long story short, I had a problem with my right eye, and he was an optometrist. And he goes, Jim, he says, remember, you're down to an eye and a third. So, in other words, you know what I mean? Because he knew I was in a lot of brawls and a lot of fist fights and so on. Yeah. But he said, Jimmy, you're down to an eye and a third. But this party, Patty, is so bent on war and violence. Think about it. Trump wants to put another $500 billion into the defense budget. It's already bloated out of and then not only that, but they threw out all the reporters that are worth their salt there. They can't even find out what Hegseth is doing with the money or anything that's going on there. In fact, Trump's son It had a $600 million deal with them. It's just in smoke and mirrors. There's no tracking it or anything else. But my point is, take the First World War. Once you start talking military buildups in Russia, France, Germany, so you're not tapping things down. You're heading. We're driving our people that we rely on into the arms of the Chinese. You see the UK guys going to China with everybody and their brother. Canada just went to China because they can't trust the United States as far as they can throw them. But Patti, the point is, he thinks that he's got this nuclear arsenal. And the tech pros that are egging them on, they think that they can somehow survive this, Patti.
I know.
Don't they have children? Do they want them to go walk around in a bomb shelter for 15 years until, like the dinosaurs, we reappear, Earth on the planet? I've never seen people talk. I grew up during the Cold War, Patti. And one of the worst days was the missile crisis. I remember I was 11 years old, and I said, "Oh my God, this is bad news!" And I ran. There was no paper in the neighborhood I was in, so I had to take a bike and get a paper. And it was just tense for the whole weekend. I thought, Jesus, Mary and St. Joseph, because we did tests every day. Get under your desk, say a rosary for the conversion of Russia. I had one after since I was a kid, and I thought, well, this is good. This is curtains, right?
Yeah.
And they patted it down. But the point is, when we had the break, we had that beautiful time when the Soviet Union could have went to, held on to democracy, but they were so involved in underworld chicanery. Everything was owned by gangsters, and it was it's just like anybody like this outfit.
I was going to say, it's owned right now. It feels like it is owned by gangsters in the outfit.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's patronage, Patti.
Yep. I know.
In other words, your friend is a friend of Keel's. Keel's a friend of this nut that's running the thing. Running. They're all related, not in blood, but they're related in the money. But the point is, why do they want this much money, and why do they want to ruin the United States? That's my big beef. I mean, why do they want to kill the United States off? I don't get it.
Yep.
You get it, Patti? I don't get it.
This is a power and money grab by the rich who just never can have enough. I mean, look at Bezos. He's laying off 16,000 employees while he makes a small yacht that will fit inside of his bigger yacht. But
he's a nut. Why would he say I spent $60 million on my buddy? Who cares if he spent $60 million?
He's built a bunker.
What about the film about Alania? They put a film out with Alania. Would they pay Bezos paid $75 million to do the film? Alania. She's about as interesting as an ant farm.
I'd rather watch an ant farm.
I'd rather watch an ant farm on a July day.
Yep.
Yes, on a July day. But think of how crazy this is. But the only thing we could do is now after these. She's after these records because they want to fool around with this midterms. Obviously,
yeah, that's true.
They probably want to get a hold of these records and disqualify every Democrat from here to Timbuktu.
Yeah. By the way, Jim, a listener asks, it says that you have the best stories. Would you consider writing an autobiography? Or we take all of your phone calls. We'll have to go through all of our records.
Okay, you sweetheart. Sweetheart, you'll outlive me, so we'll get a few more conversations. Anyway, Patti, have a great night. And I love those guys up. I love those guys up in Wisconsin. Thank you, Patti.
Of course, thank you so much. Let's take a break here because we're gonna switch gears. I like saying that because we're gonna talk about cars because we are driving at home. Jim Addie, our engineer here at WCPT, and Tom Appel will be joining us. So if you have any questions or comments about cars, we can take phone calls throughout. But we also have the Up North podcast coming up. So at any rate, we'll continue our conversation when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150 in Seattle. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that so many of you have been really kind to reach out and tell us that you're listening. Don't hesitate to do so. P. Vasquez at WCPT820.com. That's P as in Patti, Vasquez, VASQUEZ at WCPT820.com. I'd love to hear from you, from anybody. If you're not hearing the show live and you have some questions, you can put them right there. More in a moment.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Clear skies tonight with a low temperature of 1. Wind chills as cold as 15 below, with northwest winds at 10 to 20 miles an hour. On Thursday, we'll see sunshine with a high temperature of 15 degrees and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. On Friday, we'll see a chance of snow showers with 1 to 3 inches of accumulation and a high temperature around 19 degrees. Saturday, snow showers likely with a high of 23. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 16.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter. Stephanie Miller.
My personal comedy, Jesus.
People are standing up. We're seeing it all over the place. This 21-year-old girl in Colombia who sued the Trump administration because they tried to Mahmoud Khalil her, and they backed down. Jeffrey Goldberg is doing this, and they're backing down. People are showing up to vote in special elections. Guys, these guys are so beatable, and they're messy, and they're sloppy, and they're dumb. Let's keep it up.
We love you, John Fugelsang.
Stephanie Miller, weekday mornings, 8 to 11 on WCPT 820.
Hey, Clerk Elise, you got a guy who can fix my lamp.
I do. At the Township of Lyons Repair Cafe, neighbors help neighbors repair all sorts of things from lamps to vacuums. Little acts of mutual support that make a big difference.
Hey, Clerk Elise, you got a guy who can notarize documents?
The Township of Lyons has lots of notaries on staff ready to help.
Hey, Clerk Elise, you got a guy...
At the Township of Lyons, we are your guys. Whatever you need, we work to bring more resources right to you.
Check out the Township of Lyons online, Lyons with a Y, LyonsTownshipIL.gov.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's Progressive Talk from TuneIn.
Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
From city streets to political beats, you're driving it home with Patti Vasquez, where progressive talk fuels the ride.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home. It's time for Car Talk with car guy Tom Appel, Car Guy Tom, on also all your social media platforms. And he is the writer for Consumer Guide. Yeah. And, why isn't that? Oh, that one. There we go. I rolled it up, but I did not turn it on.
I was going to swear, so keep it on.
Yeah, right? All right? Gosh darn it. And Jim Addie, our engineer here at WCPT, we've been having a lot of conversations about AM radios. We've talked about this in the past. Mm-hmm. So catch people up, Jim, about who wants to take the lead on why these car makers are trying to eliminate AM radios in production.
You know, it's actually an interesting situation. It's gone two different directions now. Ooh. Initially, it started with EVs, electric vehicles, which the speed regulation, basically your electric throttle, the means of controlling that energy generates interference for AM radios, and it's quite a bit. Right. So one way you get around that problem is take the radio out. So if you don't have a radio, you won't hear the interference,
which
right?
Which is the AM signal.
AM radios, yes.
But not FM.
Yeah, well, we're getting to get to that in a second.
Gotcha.
So, that's the first move they made was to try to, eliminate those. So Tesla took it out, AM radio, and still out, I believe. Never had it. Never had it. That's true. Yeah. Right.
Oh, wow.
And Ford took it out for a little bit and brought it back,
Oh, it's electric vehicles, yeah, and they brought it back.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there have been numerous others. Now it's gotten just a hair worse, as I discovered. General Motors, in their new dashboard, in their new radio, has claimed, first of all, they're kind of taking over the dashboard. So it's not going to be a radio anymore. They're going to provide you with all the entertainment you need, or they think you need. So no radio at all, no FM, no AM, no HD.
Apple CarPlay.
And no CarPlay. It's going to be them. So how do they do that? Well, that means a subscription, right?
Well, that is where this is going.
Yes.
There is this allure of monthly income by manufacturers, right? They have your monthly payments, But they already got paid for that, right? A bank's got your payments. So what they're looking for is monthly subscriptions, and they're going to get these through access to media and through autonomous driving systems are the big ones.
Right.
So we're going to see like Ford's Blue Cruise and General Motors Super Cruise systems cost a certain amount of money per month, $25 or $50. But that's money the manufacturer didn't have before. So if you like those systems, and they're very good.
Now, there's also another thing, because those systems, once you're subscribed and they know it's you, there is a certain amount of data collection that's going to go on. I mean, this is not unusual. Everybody does it. Google tracks, maybe not you specifically, but they track what you're doing. Every major company that's supplying any function has the capability of doing that. And there's no reason to think that the car manufacturers don't realize that there is value in the data they're collecting. So they're going to know where you go, when you go, how fast you go, what you're listening to that they're supplying. And all of this can be turned into marketing data, which then can be reapplied or resold to whatever they want to do with it. Nobody's actually said they're going to do this, but it's obvious this is what big tech does.
Yes.
Most of the money that big tech makes is in the remarketing of data. It's less about the product.
Well, there was a situation where General Motors did sell data to an insurance company. That was, stripped clean of the particular person in most cases. Right. But still, it's data that you are coughing up for free that they're aggregating and commoditizing. So what was really frightening about this, actually, if you're not of a certain age, say 40, 35, you don't care. It is strange.
It's always been this way.
It's strange how younger drivers and younger consumers seem conditioned to this. Yeah. And they're cool with it. And they shouldn't be.
And I don't know, like my husband has been a Luddite. No Facebook page. Just started using Waze only because there's at certain times he's just found it more, reliable and has realized that it helps him. But that was a long time for him to come to any of those, any of the Google Maps, never having location on. And so, but for me, it was kind of like I unfortunately, even as a Gen Xer, I was like, well, this is the way we're going, right? And we just kind of shrug and go, I guess this is what we do now. It's the same thing with everything. AI. Right? I mean, you buy a computer now, you can't buy it without AI embedded.
Yeah. And one of the things, too, there's a lot of systems on your car, including the navigation system. You don't see it, but you sign away your rights to the first time you use that. You get into your new car, you want to use the navigation system. Often you have to do it through your phone, but you're going to get a big, big lawyer page. You have to scroll to the bottom and say accept, and you didn't read it, but when in the contract, you have allowed them to take all your information.
Do you know what people need to do? Since AI is the thing, and this is what I would do now, is I would copy every single word of that and put it into ChatGPT or whatever and say, tell me what this says, I'm signing away. I mean, it may as well at least know.
The problem is
they're not making a copy paste.
The system isn't going to work unless you say yes.
Right.
So if you want to use the embedded navigation system or some of the other functions, including just interactivity with your phone, you have to agree.
And the problem is you don't have a choice. It's the only thing there. It's not like you have, in decades past, we could yank the manufacturer's radio out, and a lot of us did because it wasn't that good, and put in something else, maybe with a cassette player or something in it.
Yeah.
Right? So, but those days are gone. You can't get that radio out of the dash anymore. It's really part of the system, and so much of what runs it runs a lot of other things. So you don't have a choice. So what you're really being faced with here is, here's what we will allow you to entertain yourself with, and we're going to make you pay for it, and we'll be tracking your data. It's an interesting situation. Now, by contrast, radio, it's completely autonomous. There's no data tracking even really possible. I mean, we have no meter. Trust me, I see transmitters every day. There's nothing back there that says how many people are listening and where they are. We don't get that. There is a service that does that, but they do it by extrapolation. They take a sample and they go, okay, these 1,000 people will tell us what they're doing, and we can infer what the rest are doing. But there's no way to tell. So it's autonomous. It's free.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not paying for radio. It's absolutely out there for everyone
Come on, folks. Tell everybody to come back to radio.
And the thing about AM is that because of what's on AM, the program material and the content, and really why it got that way, it's where the information is. It's where the emergency information is. So we have this system called the Emergency Alert System, EAS for short. That EAS system is structured around big AM radio stations. So every large market, or every market really, has a primary station and a second primary station. We call them LP1 and LP2.
Right.
And in Chicago, LP1 is WGN and LP2 is WBBM. Those are 50,000 watt AM radio stations that every other station can easily receive, and we do. So what happens here is a regional or national alert will go through those stations. We'll pick up the alert and we will relay it to our audience. So it's completely wireless.
Yeah.
There is no infrastructure to go down in between. There's two different paths, two different stations to get it there. And those stations are massively hardened. So, more than one transmitting tower that they can use. They have a month's worth of generator power at their disposal in case their electrical feeds go down, multiple transmitters. It's really hard to get them off the air. Maybe a direct strike by an F5 tornado might do it, but that's going to take one of them down, and now you have the other one.
So, are there still tests of the emergency broadcast system?
Yes.
Every week.
I have not heard one recently.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
we sneak them in. I mean, we don't announce them anymore. You'll hear a little data burst, and that's the test. Monthly test, which also happens. There's 3 weeklies and a monthly. The monthly is actually a test that's generated through local government. So we'll get that test relayed from the state. We don't, and then once a year we do a national test that actually originates from the federal government and trickles through all of the stations. And we have to report whether we pass it or fail it. It's a legal requirement. So testing is a requirement. We have to do that. And the results, we do react to that anytime there's an issue.
It is interesting, then, that there is no government push for people to own AM radios or to have them in their cars. There's no requirements.
No.
But you used to, like when you were putting together an emergency kit, for your basement.
Crank radio, baby. I got one. I have a crank radio.
An AM radio with lots and lots of batteries, or a crank radio, was part of that kit.
Right.
But I haven't heard that much about it in a long time. And
Well, they're still recommending that. Now, of course, like the crank radios are AM and FM, but even if you're listening to FM during an emergency, they're getting their information from the primary AM stations. That's kind of how that works.
Interesting.
So it's important.
I know what kind of sponsor I should get for the show.
There you go. So, one of the problems, and the difficult, AM is not without its difficulties. It does have some issues. And the big one is interference and noise. We live in a world now for the last several decades with much more electrical noise out there than has ever been there before.
Sure.
So if you were to just put a radio between stations, say in 1950, it would be fairly quiet. You do that now and you get screams and whistles and hash and all kinds of things. And it turns out that the main cause of this is something I guess I'd have to call it economic engineering. Because how to make something work but cheap. Well, you're going to sacrifice something, right? So all these little things that we plug into the wall that run maybe charge our phone, or maybe they're a device that we can talk to and it responds like a Alexa device or something like that. Those all have these little power modules that you plug in that generate radio noise. They do that because they're cheap. It's not because they have to, but they're cheap. And there are some that are quieter than others. But every little phone charger is a source of radio noise. So if you're trying to listen to WCPT in your house, you have a problem because all your wiring is going all the way around you and it's carrying this radio noise and it's basically infecting the entire area. Now, it's not without a cure. You can go around and unplug devices maybe one at a time and see which one is the biggest offender and get a different one, replace that. You can do that, but people don't generally do that. They hear the noise and they go, I'm not going to listen to that, and they'll find something else.
AM noise is part of the charm.
Well, yeah.
The crackle is part of the fun.
Especially during the storm.
Yeah.
And the things that, just policing your own environment is one way to do it. Mm-hmm. Being aware that radios will work a little better in some locations than others is another. And then I have to say, just because I engineer this station, we actually do some things to minimize the effects of noise too. Our signal, our audio, is processed in a way that allows it to be more intelligible over a high noise floor. And I know that noise could be electrical. It could be the sound of air around your car. It could be you're just in a noisy environment with a fan. But we actually do things to make this station more audible over the noise. Everybody does. Sure. I think we do it a little differently. I'm kind of happy that our little WCPT is a little bit louder than some of our neighboring stations because of that. But really, the challenge is getting over the noise. So we do that. But getting back onto cars, what's the problem? Why do we have this problem with noise and people wanting to take AM radios out of cars? And it has to do with what it would cost to eliminate the problem. Now, honestly, I've driven down the road listening to AM. I go by electrical vehicles. I don't really hear a problem. But inside the car, you are right next to it. So it will cost money to shield that wiring and the noise-generating sources. And it'll cost money to get a better antenna to get more signal into the car. Really, people don't want to put whips on cars anymore. An antenna whip. That's the way to do it.
I see.
And that's not a popular thing.
You know, the other part of this, too, and it isn't discussed much, in Europe, where they build an awful lot of cars, they don't have AM radio. They don't use it.
No, they eliminated it.
Germany, for example, is 100% FM.
Right.
And part of the thing is the geography is smaller. And
Sure.
it's surrounded by mountains in a lot of cases. So FM gets the job done. It's relatively flat in the places that it's working, and they're just not covering that much range.
Well, and the other thing they did in Europe very early is they have a system called DAB for digital audio broadcast. DAB was structured as more or less a cellular kind of radio. So if you're listening to a transmitter, you're actually listening to a whole bunch of stations. And as you drive, your radio will hop to the next one. But it means that you're never very far away from a good, strong transmitter. Think of it as almost like cellular radio broadcasting. Well, they decided they wanted that. They did the whole system. It works pretty well. When we got to digital broadcasting here, the biggest broadcast organization, the NAB, thought, if we do that, we're going to give small stations the same coverage as large stations, and we can't have that. So DAB was off the table.
Oh, interesting.
Instead they picked an HD radio, which wasn't initially called that, which is, okay, I'm giving an opinion now, right? I think HD radio was fundamentally hobbled when it was designed. And I really would have objected to the design at the time if I wasn't working for a company that promoted it.
Right.
So it's I couldn't say anything. Well, we got it. And honestly, I'll bet you, I don't have statistics of this, but I'll bet that cars with HD radios in them, I'll bet you most users don't know it's there.
Oh. They don't know it's there, or it works terrible.
Yeah.
Here's a problem. I live in Palatine. That arc, Palatine, Schaumburg, about that far out. HD radio comes in and comes out. It doesn't quite make the trip. So you're going back and forth, and the time delay, at least on WBBM AM, if I was going for sports scores, would be off by 7 seconds. So if it's shifted between HD and not HD, you would lose what you were listening to.
They've actually done a lot to work this out, and there right now, I don't believe there is any HD radio on AM. I think that didn't work very well, so they stopped that.
Interesting.
But in FM, the HD signal and the regular FM signal are equally delayed to match, so that when the HD fails, it fails over to standard analog FM, hopefully seamlessly. They're not perfect, but the delays, delay matching is a big deal, and there's broadcast equipment made to actually do that and maintain that. It's not as easy as it should be, maybe, but that's changed. But I think what people don't know what they're listening to. So there you go.
We're going to take a quick break here. This is amazing and fascinating, and I think we all need to know more. Let's continue our conversation. It's Car Talk with car guy Tom Appel. You can catch him on all the social media platforms, Car Guy Tom, and subscribe to his newsletter, Consumer Guide. Tom at
Car Stuff at ConsumerGuide.com.
Carstuff at ConsumerGuide.com. And Jim Addie, our engineer here at WCPT, walking us through the ins and outs of AM radios in your cars and beyond. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150. I know a lot of you do listen on your terrestrial radio. You can also catch us on Facebook and YouTube. The live stream is right there, as well as some of the apps. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, or some more news and cars when we come back on WCPT KKNW. You heard that part.
Margaret is a 71-year-old widow who came to Brookfield Tax Planning because she was worried her accountant and financial advisor weren't doing enough to reduce her taxes. During their free, no-obligation tax reduction review, it was revealed that Margaret had been overpaying $7,250 each year since her husband passed. $102,000 lost forever due to a lack of proactive tax planning. Her accountant does returns after the year is over. When it's too late, her advisor handles her investments but doesn't reduce her taxes. Once the year ends, tax reduction options shrink to almost nothing. Retirees and business owners should plan ahead now using legal, proactive strategies to slash taxes. Stop overpaying. 94% of Brookfield's new clients are shocked that they've been paying too much every year. Call Brookfield Tax Planning at 708-485-3439 or visit BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com for your free review. You have nothing to lose. That's BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our car talk with Car Guy Tom. You can now subscribe to his newsletter by emailing carstuff@consumerguide.com.
Yes.
And he's Car Guy Tom on all the social medias. And joining us in studio as well is the engineer for WCPT, Jim Addie. We've been talking about AM radios and how there are car makers that are eliminating them, including GM, because they want you to basically be entertained by what they tell you can have access to. And with... I didn't realize that Tesla, and we might have talked about it before, but Tesla has never had AM radios.
Most of the electric companies that are started as electric companies, they don't offer AM radio.
So Rivian, what's the one?
Rivian. Yeah, that's a good one. Lucid.
Okay.
Part of the deal there, too, you can fix the problem. Like the Chevrolet Bolt, for example, had AM radio and it worked just fine. That was a cheap car. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say cheap, an affordable car.
There you go. Accessible for...
it's definitely a fixable problem.
Yeah.
But I just saw where the entry-level Tesla product, which I don't remember the Model 3.
The Model 3.
Does not come with a radio at all.
Yeah.
That doesn't come until the next level. So, but I do, relating to this, it's kind of funny. I have a trivia question.
Oh.
Okay. Broadcasting was started officially by KDKA in Pittsburgh in 1920, November 1920, AM radio. When do you think the first car radio was installed?
I have seen pictures of this car and the ridiculous antenna that was on the roof.
Yes.
And it was very, very expensive. 29, 28, something like that?
1922.
Wow.
Okay. 1922. And the two guys that developed that radio went on to actually make a real commercial product. But that radio cost as much as the car.
Yeah.
And even when they made the commercial product, there's still about a third the cost of the car. Those guys went on to form Motorola.
Yep.
What?
Speaking of Motorola, I have some pictures, some ads, some classic car ads for the first cellular telephones, for car phones. Mm-hmm. And those were profoundly expensive and took up all the space in the trunk.
Right.
Like you lost the trunk to your car phone. I shouldn't say cellular. It wasn't cellular yet, but...
Wow.
But car phones, they had a big whip antenna on the back, too, for those things.
Huge antennas, huge power drain, too.
Yes.
A lot of the cars had second alternators to power the car phone.
Oh, my God. My dad was a livery driver, so he had like a town car kind of situation, and it had a phone with like a cord and everything. And I got to borrow his car one time, and he was not happy with that phone bill, but it was so cool. I was like, why would you let your teenager use this car and not think that I was going to use this car phone? This is amazing. Yeah, he was not. I was like, honestly, I think it was like $271. Like
my wife and I bought a 1991 Saab 9000 CD used. It was 1 year old and terrible resale value, so we got it as a bargain. But it included a built-in phone, which in 1991, 1992, crazy talk. So we didn't really know what we were doing when we got it hooked up. And the first $300 bill, we just disconnected. We don't really need this.
That was nuts.
Our first cell phone was stolen out of our car.
Oh, my God.
And I said if I could have talked to the thief, I would say, "You're welcome to it."
Yeah, right.
It was horrible.
Oh my God,
just terrible things.
Mine was a gray one. It was a gray Sprint with the fold down thing, and you pull up the antenna. And I think that was like 2000, 99 or 2000. Yeah. Anyway, before I forget, is there car news that we should know about as well?
There's big news out of Washington yesterday.
Ooh.
The House Republican caucus managed to not strike down a law that was going to require drunk driving detection equipment in vehicles. So this is going to move forward. Now, this law came from 2021. This is under Biden, and part of all the acts, all the economic acts that were patted down in those days, including a lot of the EV stuff for cars. But they still haven't gotten anything. We're waiting for NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, to actually define what this device would be. This device, or this, I should say, system, really, that's going to go into cars. But it's interesting because people who oppose to it keep calling it a kill switch, which sounds pretty dramatic.
Yes, that's what we were saying. Like, while you're in traffic and it decides that you're driving erratically enough to be drunk, is it based on how you're driving, or?
Yeah, so we have systems like this in place already, but for different reasons. So there's one if your electric car is running out of power.
Okay.
And there's one for if people are familiar with DEF, diesel emission fluid, but it's stuff you have to use in your diesel to keep it emissions compliant. If you don't use it, your vehicle will stop itself. And if your electric vehicle runs out of power, it's going to start to slow down. The way these systems work is that they give you plenty of warning, but you start to get less power, less throttle, the car is less responsive, and you know you're in trouble. And you have a period of time until you have to pull over because the car will eventually stop. But it doesn't just stop in traffic. And it's trickier because you're already talking about someone who's drunk.
Right.
So.
Right. So, I mean, anything that is, whether it's driverless cars, whether it's, giving over the power to the vehicle.
There is a lot of big brotherism here.
Yes.
It's a little frightening.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns, too, is whether or not the government would be aware that this thing called you out for being
drunk,
potentially inebriated.
Yeah.
So apparently the system is supposed to be self-contained and not share that information.
Right.
But there's a lot there that's a little fuzzy about how that's going to work.
Oh my
so
God.
what we don't have is standards for this yet. It's 5 years in. We should have standards for it. We don't. So we're probably not very close to implementation.
Look, and I am all for making sure that we don't have drunk drivers on the roads. I know that people are overconfident. They think, well, I've only had a couple. I feel fine. Like there's a lot there. People blow right past any sort of, encouragement or discouragement. And they have access to Uber. Like, we always wonder, my husband and I, whenever there's like a celebrity who's involved in a drunk driving, they're like, you have enough money to have had a driver or just call an Uber, leave your car where it is.
That's lazy.
It is. It's really lazy.
It's complicated. It's hard to do.
I know it is. I just don't think I don't think that having basically your car turn off on you is a solution either. For your car to determine how you're driving is.
It's interesting. The folks from MAD are all over the radio today.
They want it?
Yeah, they really want it. And they're not really concerned about the social implications that we're discussing right now. Something's going to come of this, and it's going to make use of the systems we have in place. If anyone has a car built in like the last 5 years, they have lane departure warning systems, or those are the systems that will be used to determine if, in fact, you are inebriated. And there's also drowsiness alert systems in a lot of cars now that frequently tell me that I need to take a...
Yes, you need a cup of... It has a symbol that says you need some coffee, or maybe you need to pull over and rest.
Now,
or
if it
something
actually
like that.
dispensed the coffee.
Oh, my goodness.
No, you have something.
That would be very
Or just
nice.
a little no-dose dispenser.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for this conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jim, for talking to us about AM radios. And I think it encourages folks to also be aware of where, the situation, the impact that AM radios have, the importance of them. So thank you so much for that. Tom Appel, Car Guy Tom.
Yeah.
And you can email him for the newsletter, carstuff@consumerguide.com. So it only takes me about a year or so to get all these details down. Car Guy Tom on all your social media platforms. We have him in every last Wednesday of the month, and we love having you join us. His podcast comes out every week as well.
Very late Monday night.
Very late Monday night.
It's waiting for you Tuesday morning.
There you go. Thank you so much. Say hi to Jill for me and everybody else.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
Let's take a break here. It's the Up North podcast coming up right after the news on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150. Hi, Seattle. We love you.
Need to sell your house fast? Whether you're facing foreclosure, stuck with bad tenants, or just ready for a fresh start, House Buyer Network can help. We buy homes as is for cash. No fees, no commissions, no repairs. Get a fair cash offer in just 24 hours and close in as little as 7 days. Call 833-719-5877 now for your free no-obligation offer. That's 833-719-5877. House Buyer Network. Fast cash, no hassle.
Offers are typically below market value in exchange for speed and convenience. Call for details.
File now with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction or your money back. File in the Credit Karma app.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas.
President Trump seemed to signal a willingness to ease tensions in Minneapolis after a second deadly shooting by federal immigration agents, but there was little evidence of any significant changes today.
Get back in your vehicle now. I don't care who you are, get back in your vehicle.
Bureau of Prisons officers chasing off an AP reporter who later saw a man pepper sprayed and a vehicle pulled over with shattered windows. Meantime, Ed Donahue reports.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is facing rising calls for her firing or impeachment after the shooting deaths in Minneapolis of two people who protested deportation policy. President Trump was asked about it.
Is Kristi Noem going to step down?
No. Noem is facing criticism from Democrats and Republicans. North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis was asked what it would mean if Noem continues as Homeland Security Secretary.
That we're allowing incompetent people in very prominent roles in the cabinet.
Tillis called Noem a complete failure on disaster response.
She clearly doesn't know how to manage. She's never managed a large organization, and she's failing at every possible measure of the job.
Noem's remarks after the shooting deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minneapolis, suggesting Preddy attacked officers and portrayed the events leading up to Good's shooting.
This was an act of domestic terrorism.
Have been seen as doing irreparable damage. Ed Donahue, Washington.
In Georgia, a spokesperson for Fulton County says the FBI served a search warrant at the elections office near Atlanta today, seeking records tied to the 2020 election. The Federal Reserve is leaving its benchmark interest rate unchanged at about 3.6%. Chair Jerome Powell.
The upside risks to inflation and the downside risks to employment have diminished, but they still exist. So there's still some tension between the mandates. Are they fully in balance? Hard to say.
Stocks closed little changed on the day. This is AP News. The Pro Football Hall of Fame announces its class of 2026 next week, but Gethin Coolbaugh reports the NFL coach with the most Lombardi trophies won't be in it.
Six-time Super Bowl champion head coach Bill Belichick did not get voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. Citing 4 unidentified sources, ESPN said Belichick didn't receive the necessary 40 votes from the 50-person panel of media members and other Hall of Famers. ESPN said the longtime New England Patriots coach received a call from the Hall of Fame last Friday with the news. The Hall of Fame class of 2026 will be announced at NFL Honors in San Francisco on February 5th. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
And the Cleveland Browns have hired Todd Monken as their next head coach. He's been Baltimore's offensive coordinator the past 3 seasons and was Cleveland's in 2019. There's more news at apnews.com. I'm Ben Thomas. Thanks for listening.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Clear skies tonight with a low temperature of 1. Wind chills as cold as 15 below, with northwest winds at 10 to 20 miles an hour. On Thursday, we'll see sunshine with a high temperature of 15 degrees and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. On Friday, we'll see a chance of snow showers with 1 to 3 inches of accumulation and a high temperature around 19 degrees. Saturday, snow showers likely with a high of 23. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 16.
At Straight Talk, we get it. You say no a lot.
Mom, can I get a tarantula?
No.
Coffee?
No. So we're giving you more reasons to say yes, like a free 5G phone with real unlimited data with select plan activation.
Can I use the free phone?
Yes. See? Doesn't it feel good to say yes to more?
Absolutely. Face tattoo? Absolutely not.
Available at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Taxes and fees apply. In-store activation of Gold Unlimited plan or higher required. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
After serving in the military, life can seem like an endless loop. But the cycle can be broken. You're not alone. Visit maketheconnection.net to learn more.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, From global conflicts
And politicians getting caught grabbing asses. She's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
And we are heading into the Up North podcast. Our fearless leader, Kirk Bangstad, will be joining us in and right now, there he is. Hey, everybody. Hey, Simon. Hi.
Hey, Patty. How you doing?
I'm great. Take it away, Kirk.
Awesome. All right. So this is the Up North podcast. We've got people joining us from all over the state of Wisconsin and Chicago. I'm here in Madison. Amy Thomas is our producer. She's in Milwaukee. Simon is probably all over the state. Simon is the head of the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition. Simon, where are you right now, my friend?
I am in Madison for once.
Okay, awesome. And of course, we got the fearless Patti Vasquez in Chicago letting us grace her airwaves with our podcast on Wednesdays from 6 to 7. This is a big show today. Obviously, it's a big time in all of our lives. As soon as Pretty. What's his first name again?
Alex Pretty.
As soon as Alex was murdered on Saturday, Simon texted me and he said, it's time for a general strike, because we've been talking about this for a year and we've been working really, really hard to understand how to get this done, how to talk to labor, how to understand what labor's saying to us. And the world shifted when we all watched that video, and there's lots going on, and now we're all talking about a general strike. So this entire show today is going to be about how a general strike happened on that Friday in Minneapolis, before last Friday, the history of general strikes and how they've succeeded throughout the world, and then we're going to talk about some of the issues about doing a general strike for regime change, is what the goal is here, is to get rid of Trump and to get rid of ICE and to get America back. How to accomplish that in America, given some of the drawbacks, including the Taft-Hartley Act, which we'll talk about later. And then finally, what is happening in Wisconsin and Chicago to kind of join in some of these national talks about a general strike happening. So first of all, Patty, can you tell us kind of what happened? What happened in Minnesota on Friday that hopefully will spread to Wisconsin, Chicago, and the rest of the country?
Well, the incredible grassroots organizing that's gone on in Minneapolis as they've shouldered the brunt of the attacks from this regime. The ICE out general strike was a ground up rather than being called by a single group. There wasn't we have so many great organizations, but this was definitely a collaboration. Some 80 different groups came together, coordinating a rapid response and they've been drawing on years of organizing relationships. This included over 700 businesses in the Twin Cities that closed down. Between 70,000 and 100,000 people participated in the demonstrations. That does not include those who collectively decided not to work, shop, or attend school, and it was massive. The AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, the CWA's national presidents publicly declared their members were standing up coast to coast in solidarity, and they used Minnesota's general strike as a rallying point for broader opposition to ICE tactics. So this has been monumental.
Monumental. Simon, you're closer to. So, by the way, I should have. Your background is awesome. And you should tell it to everybody. You wrote a great article yesterday about general strikes. You're the head of the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition, which is kind of a Bernie Sanders kind of related. You came from the Bernie world, but you started this in Wisconsin. It's kind of the resistance movement coalition in Wisconsin. You came from labor. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, and then tell us, what was happening from kind of the labor perspective in Minnesota to get that strike off the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Kirk, and nice to be on with you. I come from Madison, born and raised here. Grew up part of the teachers union strikes back in 2011, and found myself in the middle of the labor movement again when I was a professional baseball player. Helped organize a minor league baseball players association, and then continued with labor. So I worked for SEIU. I've worked for the AFL-CIO. I'm here, on behalf of a lot of our labor brothers and sisters, but also really just as an angry Wisconsinite and as somebody who wants to see ICE out of our communities, that wants to see our neighbors protected, and wants to see, frankly, not a return to an America that we lost, but a rebuilt America, something that looks more like an America that works for working people, not just, big corporations. And so I'm excited to talk today. This is one of the most exciting moments, or in one of the most horrifying times, one of the most exciting moments of labor solidarity we've seen in generations in the United States.
All right, Simon, what did labor do? Who was involved in the strikes, in the strike in Minnesota that has caught on fire? And that's the reason we're talking about it today.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, as Patti mentioned, a big coalitional effort. But I will say that part of the reason that this galvanized so quickly and organized so effectively was because of the role that unions played, particularly local unions, that took a lead in calling for a general day of action, a shutdown. It was an economic blackout for the city. And so it was called different things in different corners, and that was intentional, in part, as we'll talk later, because of strike laws in the United States. But unions like SEIU Local 26, Unite Here Local 17, the Amalgamated Transport Workers Union, who often do their bus drivers in communities, they are as well in Milwaukee, and we'll get to that later. Teachers unions in Minneapolis and St. Paul, IATSE, which is the stage employees, theater employees, graduate workers at the University of Minnesota, the United Electrical Workers, the transit union. So we mentioned that earlier, but they shut down the buses as well. And they actually provided free rides often to folks to go to these rallies. We had the Committee of Interns and Residents, which is medical students in Minnesota. And then a bunch of labor feds. So these are local labor councils that are basically unions of unions at a local level in communities. And eventually the state, the Minnesota State Fed, the AFL-CIO, which is the umbrella body for many of the unions, most of the unions in Minnesota, also endorsed this, which has not happened since the 1934 general strike in Minneapolis. And we can talk about some of these historical examples later, but this is kind of a ground shaking moment for the American labor movement to stand behind an economic blackout like this.
Who else joined labor? Patti mentioned it a little bit, but we got faith groups. We had the Democratic Socialists. I got a couple things. So Amy did a lot of this research, and thank you, Amy. We got faith and peace groups, church networks like the Veterans for Peace and Jewish Voice for Peace, Faith in Minnesota, Democratic Socialists of America, the Communist Party, and other socialist organizations participated. So it was a huge coalition. Amy, ever since Trump was elected, and you're going to join for a little bit, and then you want to hop off because you'd love being in the background, but you did the research, and I really need your thoughts on this. We've been talking to Simon for a year, but even before that, before we met Simon, we were like, how do we, plug in with other people and get them to trust us, and work with them, and we've been talking about how to build networks like this. How did Minnesota pull this off? Because that feeds into a lot of our conversations from the last year.
So I think that from the outside looking in, it looked a little decentralized, right? But in a sense, that was kind of the strategy. So there wasn't chaos. I think there was a lot of communications. And what we know from the history of Minneapolis is that they've engaged in this kind of work, not because they necessarily wanted to, but we had what happened with George Floyd, right? And so they came together and they started organizing as communities. So we've got the labor movement, but we have a lot of smaller localized organizations that came together to figure out how they could help their community. So it wasn't called by one group. Well, I guess there was the labor piece of it, right? But each sector really mobilized its own people. So I think that made a big difference. And Kirk, did you just mention that 700 businesses closed, or was that Patti? Because I think that's significant.
Yeah, Patti mentioned it, and it is significant. And we close in solidarity with them because we deliver lots of beer in Minneapolis, and that's huge. And it's because every single Wendy's, obviously a lot of us have relatives in Minneapolis. Like my brother-in-law said he couldn't go to a single Wendy's because every single worker was scared that they were going to be rounded up by ICE. And so it's it made sense for businesses to close because businesses are going out of business because their workers aren't showing up for work because they're too scared. Simon, before I want to make sure we get this out, you're an organizer. Amy came from the organizing world. Patti and I have big mouths, but we're organized. We're doing a lot of the organization stuff because we're showing up and doing stuff. How did they get the word out for this? How can you actually, because this is something we're gonna build on later in terms of how we do this again.
Yeah, I mean, look, there were flyers all over the city. They were stapled on like literally every telephone pole in many neighborhoods. There was also a lot of training that was done throughout this process. So there are like direct action and nonviolent direct action trainings happening all across the city and actually all across America. So please go join one in your local community. There's workplace organizing. Obviously, workers are doing this in their workplaces. When unions endorse, it spreads like wildfire because people spend most of their time at work. But I also want to note that these mutual aid networks that were built across the city, actually, I was in Minneapolis in 2020. I was doing some food deliveries from the Wisconsin side when many of the grocery stores were, the shelves were empty during the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis. And these same mutual aid networks existed then. And so I want to be clear that this doesn't happen overnight. But the mutual aid networks that have been built around the city are also organizing groups. They're community group chats. They're neighborhood signal groups where people can communicate information. And every single one of those, I guarantee you, was full of flyers and notices about this strike action. And I think this doesn't happen without sort of the community pulling together. And I think it's a no-brainer if you know folks in the Midwest to know that they will pull together in a moment like this. And that's kind of what makes our communities particularly resilient. But Minneapolis is just an amazing example of solidarity for the rest of the country to take note of. There's also, and I can point to a thread later, but like there was a person who posted a thread on Blue Sky that was like, the minute you walk into the city, you feel it. There's kind of a drumbeat of organizing happening in every corner of Minneapolis right now. And that's what we need in the rest of the country at this moment.
I think one of my favorite stories is this business called Smitten Kitten, which is an adult toy store that is one of the, they're kind of collecting a lot of supplies for people or helping organize too. So Smitten, fist up to Smitten Kitten. I love that.
Patti, I can't believe you brought them up because that's where the retired colonel, my retired colonel that just delivered $17,000 in a GoFundMe campaign of like PPE and feminine products for the shut-in immigrants. He delivered them to Smitten Kitten.
Yeah,
some of that stuff because and I hesitated because it was like a porn shop and I was like, I can't show my Substack folks, tell them all to like go to a porn shop.
It's about sexual health. It's not a porn shop.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize.
This is a story for another time. I'm just saying. You can use your FSA for some of these items. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. So we just talked about everything that happened in Minneapolis, and Simon tells me that once you start striking, it is infectious and it spreads. And so in the next segment, after this commercial break, we're going to talk about the history of some general strikes to show everybody that they're not often, they don't happen often, but they are effective. And we can talk about some that have been very effective in the next segment. Stick with us.
We'll be right back with Kirk, Amy, and Simon on the Up North podcast. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez. Thank you to Pride Coffee Roasters, our friends at Minocqua Brewing Company, and of course, Pride Coffee Roasters. More in a moment on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. Hello, Minneapolis. We love you.
A Better Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
For anyone dealing with chronic constipation, the usual advice is generic. Eat more fiber. And yes, we all know about prunes or prune juice, but new dietary guidelines published in the Journal of Human Nutrition and Dietetics offer a few other foods you can and probably should try to find relief. For one, kiwis. They're really good at pulling water into your intestines, enhancing protein digestion, and then facilitating the movement of food, fluids, and waste in the digestive tract. If you're not a fan of kiwi, rye bread, flax seeds, oranges, yogurt, and oatmeal are a few other things the researchers suggested you might try. While I'm generally not a fan of supplements, psyllium has been shown to help your intestine move stool along and reduce your body's cholesterol absorption. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, helping you live a better life.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
ZipRecruiter. You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
We are back with the Up North podcast here on WCPT, KKNW, and 1150. Joining us is Kirk Bangstad, who's going to take it away and lead us into our next segment.
So I probably should have set this up a little bit more in our first segment, but why are we talking about general strikes right now? Why are we talking about a national strike? So kind of if you game out what's happening in America, ICE is murdering people. They were disappearing immigrants before. Now they're murdering American citizens. There is you can hypothesize that, they're going to scare people so much because of the terror that they're wreaking on our blue cities that they're going to try to tampen down voting in November, or they might try to suspend voting, period. And so if you can't vote in a society, the only other thing you can do that's nonviolent to force regime change or to get rid of a dictatorship or authoritarianism is to just withhold your work and bring the economy to a screeching halt. So that's the reason we're talking about a strike, because we no longer have the power, we don't have any power in our 3 branches of government to change what's happening right now. So that's kind of the lead into this. Now, I wanted, Simon is the wizard at general strikes. And so I wanted, Simon, can you tell us a little bit about the history of general strikes, where they've worked in the past, both globally and in America?
Well, I'm certainly not a wizard, because none of us have ever been a part of a general strike in America. And that's kind of for a reason. It's solidarity strikes have been outlawed in America since 1947. But across the world, and those of you who know me may know that I've spent a lot of time organizing outside the US as well. And a couple of places, one place that I've been to a number of times is Serbia. And Serbia had a general strike. It's had a bunch of general strikes in its history. But it had repeated general strikes in the late 1990s. But one particular strike in 2000 against Slobodan Milosevic, who was a dictator at that time, kind of hanging on to power in this really nationalist government. There's this Kosovo politics that kind of looks a lot like our southern border politics do in the United States. But at that point, there were these massive student movements, this group called Otpor, which is basically resist. And it's, there massive student actions, there's protests in the street, and there's an election. And the election is not recognized by the National Election Commission, which is controlled by the Milosevic government. Sound familiar? It probably does to a lot of you. So the student movement that has been organizing this whole time, building up power, they're the reason these elections happened in the first place anyway. They called for a general strike. And the coal miners in the South that produced coal for most of the country did go on strike. They withheld coal from the country. And that strike, again, expanded. It exploded across the country. You had folks from all over the nation, in part because the central city, Belgrade, was actually not the hub of the strike. Their organizing had happened all across the country in the rural areas, in the sort of smaller communities. And they bust in, they drove their tractors in, they rode wagons in, they took the train in. And by the end of that day, there were so to be clear, Serbia is the same size as Wisconsin, basically. There's about 1 million people in the streets in Belgrade. And at that time, the police actually stood down. They're like, we are not going to go arrest these protesters. They were at that point disobeying orders because they saw it was just ridiculous to control that crowd. And Milosevic resigned days later. Within a week, they had recognized the results of the election and appointed the new president. That's one example that we can look to in history. Now, Serbia is not the United States, it's Wisconsin. So it's a much smaller example. A country that's much bigger, though, is Egypt. And those of you who were around Wisconsin in 2011 remember the solidarity between Madison and Cairo at the time, where there's protesters all over Tahrir Square in Cairo. And there's basically 300,000 workers that are participating in a general strike to oust President Hosni Mubarak. It started not as a general strike against the administration, but actually as a protest against police brutality that was so widely and deeply felt across the country that students and community leaders joined in. They had an occupation of the square. And then suddenly they call a general strike, workers walk out. But really importantly, workers who worked on the Suez Canal, the most important economic choke point in the country, struck. And that shut down the country's economy. And so they saw nearly $300 million a day in economic losses. And 2 weeks later, the president is ousted. In the US, we've had a number of general strikes at the city level throughout our history. And so Minneapolis is walking in a long line of tradition here. One of the examples that I'll use is Seattle. There's a 1919 Seattle strike. These are mostly in solidarity with other workers. So workers that go on strike then are joined by other workers, and it becomes a mass strike with mass demands. So Seattle's one example. I'll also use the example of Minneapolis. I mean, Minneapolis had a general strike in 1934 that was a strike by the Teamsters against the trucking companies in Minneapolis. They were joined across the city by workers who found, this strike struck home with them. They were joined by, workers across the city, by political parties across the city. At that time, there was a strong socialist movement in Minneapolis that joined them. And you saw a mass strike in that city too. So they have a history as well. There's strikes all over the world. You look in almost any country, you're going to find one. Okay.
So when I heard from you, the thing that came out to me was, if the Suez Canal is getting shut down and you're losing $300 million a day, there are rich people that are backing dictatorships, and they're generally aligned. So there's oligarchs and there's dictators. And as soon as it becomes more painful for an oligarch to support a regime because they're losing gazillions of dollars every day, then they choose democracy, or they choose to change regimes because they care about money more than they care about putting their thumb on people. So that's what I'm hearing, and that's exactly what we need to do here. Patty, talk to us about why it's hard to strike. There's a Taft-Hartley Act, and you talked to some union guys in Chicago. What are you hearing?
I am not as well versed on the labor history and movements around the world. However, during the early 1900s, we know that labor unions made incredible gains, and they were met with a lot of violence. During World War II, the unions were not striking because we were at war, but they also, at the end of the war, started to have strikes because workers deserved a piece of the massive amounts of profits that were made during the war. So there were Republicans who, of course, crafted legislation. They did get Democrats to support it as well. And so in 1947 was a Taft-Hartley legislation that bans whether it's wildcat strikes, any sort of sympathy strikes, general strikes. And when I talked to labor leaders here in Chicago, they said that that's basically, the employers can sue the employees if they go on strike. And we know since the 1980s, it's become even harder. We also have a drop since the 1940s in union membership. I mean, when we've been strongest, and that's part of what made us stronger during World War II, was having higher numbers of union members in power. So that puts us at a disadvantage when it comes to being able to strike. However, one of the things that we talked about was how much, as we've mentioned before, the teachers' unions have shown a light on how things can be accomplished. In Chicago, when teachers went on strike, I believe it was for 11 days, they weren't just fighting for their own pay or days off and things like that. They were talking about wraparound services and improving the lives of their students as well as the teachers, which I think is a way to show the path forward. Of course, no one's going to sue them. In Chicago, we have a mayor who is sympathetic to teachers, but it is an example of how things can be accomplished.
Simon, did we leave anything out about what some of the restrictions of the Taft-Hartley Act with general strikes?
No, but I'll just add, when you have an administration that looks like the Trump administration, it allows for some federal injunctions on strikes at times, and you can bet that the Trump administration is going to think about using federal tools to force workers back to work. You remember that, in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan did this with the PATCO workers and actually busted the entire union. And so that was a strike of workers. They were air traffic controllers, and Reagan came in and basically blew up the union from the inside. And this was one of the first sort of opening salvos of what became a 30, 40-year program of union busting by the federal government that has now culminated in the Trump administration appointing the worst labor board and labor administration we've maybe ever seen. The Biden administration certainly did not gain us back the ground we needed to be able to withstand this Trump administration.
Oh boy. It's a lot. Let's take a break here because we have to take a moment for our weather. We are continuing our conversation with the Up North podcast led by Amy Thomas, Kirk Bangstad, and our friend Simon Rosenbaum Larson. And we want to come back and pick up where we left off in a moment on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF AM 950. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Clear skies tonight with a low temperature of 1. Wind chills as cold as 15 below with northwest winds at 10 to 20 miles an hour. On Thursday, we'll see sunshine with a high temperature of 15 degrees and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. On Friday, we'll see a chance of snow showers with 1 to 3 inches of accumulation and a high temperature around 19 degrees. Saturday, snow showers likely with a high of 23. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 15.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
This is Tony Moret. I'm an estate planning attorney who drafts living trusts and wills for my clients. You have probably heard my ads here on WCPT for the last few years. Your fellow listeners, when we have completed their plans, say, I wish I had done this sooner. It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. We can complete your estate plan within 30 days or less. There are certainly decisions that need to be made, but my 30-plus years of experience will help guide you through this process. There may never be a perfect time to start, but whenever I'm asked when is the best time, my answer is always the same. Now is the best time, while it is on your mind. Being able to tell your family that you have an estate plan in place, that all the details have been taken care of, will be a great relief to both yourself and those you care for the most. Our initial consultation is without charge, and there is no obligation. My phone number is 847-996-0496, and my website is moretlawoffice.com, spelled M-O-R-E-E. I look forward to speaking with you.
The best words to hear at the TSA security checkpoint? You're good to go. So check before you jet. Avoid delays at TSA security checkpoints by making sure you have an acceptable form of ID. That means a real ID, passport, or other acceptable forms of identification.
Visit tsa.gov/ID to check the full list of acceptable IDs. Avoid travel delays by checking ID requirements, and you're good to go.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Hey, folks, don't forget that the Addison Township Brunch is this Saturday, and you can go to AddisonDemocrats.com. Adam Mockler's going to be there. You know him from CNN. We'd love to have you join us for a full buffet breakfast, and the program will feature speakers from Illinois State, County, and local leadership. AddisonDemocrats.com. We'd love to see you there. I'll be there a little bit late, but I will be joining them. Adam Mockler again, joining the Democrats for breakfast. In just a moment, we'll be back with our podcast from the Up North. Hey, come on out and hang out with me on Saturday morning. If you didn't get tickets for the Dino's fundraiser, even better reason. More now with our Up North podcast with Kirk Bangstad, Amy Thomas, and Simon Rosenbaum Larson. Are they back?
We are back, everyone. How you doing, Patty?
Good. How are you doing? Sorry about that. That was me pushing buttons.
So everybody listening live, Patty allows us to be on her airwaves in Chicago, and I appreciate that. We're live on Substack, Facebook, YouTube, and just recently Twitch, which I believe is for a younger generation that I don't even understand what Twitch is, but Simon is younger than me and told me we had to go on Twitch.
Simon, shouldn't we be playing video games while we're talking about politics? Isn't that the way to do it?
You got to do the little Subway Surfers on the side so that, all Gen Z is locked in.
I'm just saying.
Oh, my God. You've definitely made me feel like a grandpa on this one, but we're hitting a younger crowd with Twitch apparently. But that's why sometimes when we come in from break, everyone's doing their own ads and stuff. So we're just happy to get this out to as many people as possible.
And I'm shopping on SmittenKitten.com, by the way. So go ahead.
Okay, so we talked about the history of general strikes. We talked about how Minneapolis, and Twin Cities pulled it off. Now I want to talk about, how we actually pull off a general strike in the United States. And Amy did a lot of the research here for us, but I know a couple of things have to be in place in order for a general strike to happen. And one, the demand has to be clear, broadly felt, and political. And I think, the demand wasn't clear until Eric Pretty was murdered. Was it Eric?
Alex. It's Alex.
Alex. I apologize. It wasn't clear until until we saw that video. We saw Renee Good's video 2 weeks earlier, and that horrified us. But it didn't become like a systemic, like this is going to keep happening unless we do something, until we saw Alex, that video. So it was an immediate demand. The demand is clear. We have to stop them from terrorizing us. So that's there. Now, the other pre-existing thing that has to happen is you have to have organizations already in place. And this has been building. We No Kings, Indivisible, unions, all these networks that we talked about, we've been building them for a year because of Trump's relentless attacks on our society. So, and then the third thing I'm not quite sure is there, but I think it's close. Elites, the oligarchs, and the Trump administration, they have to be starting to divide or face a legitimacy crisis. And I believe the oligarchs are saying, we didn't sign up for this because the tariffs are happening, because our economy is also tanking at the same time that Trump is attacking, blue cities. So I think we're starting to see cracks there. And that is the time when the time is ripe for a general strike. So Simon, that being said, what does it take to actually the rubber hit the road for us to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a general strike is really hard and it's really risky. General strikes are, will cause repercussions for workers across the society. And I promise you, the oligarchs are not going to get on board. They're not on our team. Despite the fact that they may be breaking from the Trump administration, they want nothing more than to replace every job in America with an AI at this point. So we know for a fact that like the small business community is totally broken from the corporate oligarch world. So the small business community, the workers, the organizations that represent the working class of America, that's the unions, but it's also faith groups and community organizations. They have to be able to develop this infrastructure to train and sort of support hundreds of thousands and millions of people going on strike, potentially losing their jobs, right? Mutual aid is going to become a massive part of every resistance movement as people face retaliation for going on strike or walking out of their jobs. There are risks that, people have to face, whether it's violence from the state or from those in power. You saw the Pinkerton forces in the past called in by bosses. They were private security forces used to murder strikers in the past. Like that's a possibility we have to be thinking about. Being able to align the labor movement, which is, the AFL-CIO has 12 million plus members, like that would be a general strike that could shut down America tomorrow if the AFL-CIO across all of its unions went on strike. But one of the things that I think I want to be clear about is we need to build that infrastructure today and we need to do it now. And so one of the things we can do is begin building these sort of community networks that are going to form the basis of a strike. I like to call them strike committees. I come out of a union organizing background. We build organizing committees in the workplace. We're building strike committees in our communities. That's leaders from the labor space. So union leaders, union presidents, folks across the labor movement. It's faith communities. So it's your pastors, your ministers, your rabbis, your imams that are in the community ready to organize alongside you. It's community leaders. It's the head of the local indivisible group. It's, the person that knocks the most doors during a presidential election. These are community leaders as well. And it's going to require like a level of grassroots sort of overwhelming support to pull in. There's like a gravitational effect here where it pulls in community members and folks in the neighborhood, and they see signs and it becomes ubiquitous. And it's a moment, and we have to crystallize around a date and a time. And so I've been pushing people, and I think national groups have been pushing people to recognize that May Day, International Workers' Day, is our next moment to strike. And I think, many groups, including Voces de la Frontera in Wisconsin, have called for May Day to be a general strike day. And so that's what we're building towards here in Wisconsin. And I think groups across the country, whether it's the May Day Strong or the labor unions, are going to be moving for a general strike on May Day.
Okay, so you covered a lot of the, the infrastructure of all the different groups that have to form. What is the average Joe listening to this podcast? How do they start? How do they start getting active? Obviously we have all these structures. We have strike committees. We have strike schools. How do you get involved with that if you're not an organizer?
In your community, you have political organizing groups, whether it's an indivisible chapter, whether it's a chapter of the Democratic Socialists, something like that. Go to a meeting. That's the first thing you should do, is go to a meeting. Show up, be there with your community. Go find the folks in your neighborhood that have been politically active. Check who's posting on Facebook. Show up. Start talking to people. Meet a friend. Take a couple of friends with you. This is intended to be a social experience. So that's the first thing you should do. The second thing you should do is begin having conversations in your workplace. If you are a worker in a workplace, most likely you spend most of your time there with your colleagues and your coworkers. Just go have some feeler conversations. Don't go to somebody and say, hey, you ready to come strike with me? But you can have those conversations about what's going on in the world, about how brutal it is to watch somebody get shot on your phone when you wake up in the morning by a masked agent walking in our streets. So that's the kind of conversation you want to start having with your coworkers. Look, we have months to build for May Day, but we should be starting to have these conversations now. And then once you have those conversations and you start getting a sense of the organizing space, figure out where the power centers are in your community. So here in Madison, we have a really powerful faith community. We have strong unions in the public sector in particular. Here in Madison, we have great teachers unions. That's a place we can start organizing. We can also start organizing with the really politically active folks in our community, the folks in the indivisible groups, the DSA, and groups like that. So that's what I would do if you are just trying to get started. Show up, start talking to folks.
What if I work, at my house and I'm a contractor, and I work and I have Zoom meetings and I belong to a big corporation that's in another state, and if I don't show up on my Zoom meeting, they're going to fire me. How do I do that? Like, how do I participate?
Kirk, there's a bar on every corner in Wisconsin. Pop down to your local bar. Start chatting up folks in your neighborhood. Look, we are a community now, and the only way we're going to survive this is by building community where we are. So you own bars, Kirk. You are probably within spitting distance of a bar. Go to your local bar. Go to your local.
But am I going to get fired? I mean, I'm the worker. I'm not Kirk, the brewery owner. I'm the worker. Am I going to if I get fired because I don't show up because I'm part of a strike? What do I do?
Yeah, so this is the question that our movement has to ask itself is, are we prepared to handle what happens when people get fired? And right now we're not, right? And that's why we can't general strike. People have called for a general strike this week on Friday. If we mass walk out of work and 15% of people lose their jobs, they're going to be SOL trying to, pay for groceries, pay for rent, put a roof over their heads. We can't afford that as a movement, because it's going to demoralize people and it's going to hurt our movement as we move forward. So really what we have to be doing right now is build the community networks that can support that. And if everybody in your workplace walks out on the same day, you're going to be a lot safer. There's safety in numbers in this stuff. So that's why organizing matters.
Yeah. Wherever you work, and even it's remotely too. By the way, Kirk, I want to point out to Simon's point about go to your local bar. I live in a neighborhood that's fairly conservative, and so when I go and I watch Jeopardy or the evening news, generally there have been conversations, championing this regime's policies previously. They're much quieter now. Like when there's stories on it's a pretty significant shift. And I've heard them yelling amongst themselves. Things are moving, even if it's just silence during news and stories about what ICE is doing. They're not celebrating, which was surprising.
Nobody in this country wants their freedom taken away. I think that's the baseline here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just think about it. The Second Amendment was just violated, and we all saw it. The gun nuts of this country, who are all Republicans, just saw a guy with a open carry permit get shot and murdered, and he didn't even draw his weapon. I mean, how can you honestly call yourself, a red-blooded Republican without with and see that happen.
I do want to mention, we want to talk a little bit about mutual aid. For folks who want to know, like, you can Google mutual aid and see where there are locations in your area, how you can get involved. As Simon and Kirk have been talking about, this is going to be crucial to make sure that people have what they need in the event that they do lose their job and do need to make sure that they're feeding their families, and how they can make connections there too. So, for example, in the Chicagoland area, you can find like maps. There's a whole bunch of sites that give you information about pop-up pantries, health services, all the kinds of things that you might need in the event that you want to make sure that you're supporting the people in your community who want to take part in a general strike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Patty, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Because
we got to jump to a commercial.
Yeah,
we got to jump.
I talk fast. Let's take a break here. We'll continue the Up North podcast led by our fearless leader, Kirk Bangstad, the owner of Minocqua Brewing Company, Simon Rosenbaum-Larson, who you can check out all of his work on his Substack. And where else should folks find you? What are the best ways to connect with you, Simon?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Find me at your local bar talking about organizing a general strike.
Let's tip one back in my neighborhood, Simon. Let's take a break here, and we'll continue our conversation in just a moment on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. We're so glad that you're here.
Out Chicago.
I always like to give Scott a little something on his birthday, and I like to do it on the air.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. There better be a lot of cheese in here is what I'm hoping for.
Well,
there is. You know the key to my heart is cheese. I am Midwestern through and through. You cut me, I bleed Velveeta.
We know.
I love it.
Catch Out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820.
If you're an experienced homeowner who's outlived your assets or your spouse recently passed away, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local reverse mortgage lender. Alice, 90, widow, income $24,000 a year, living in a $500,000 home with no mortgage. Alice's husband recently passed away and she was terrified about losing her home, so her daughter called for information about a reverse mortgage. We helped Alice secure a reverse mortgage, which allowed her to access $300,000 tax-free dollars so she could afford in-home health care. Let's review. Alice's husband recently passed away. She outlived her assets and thought she had to sell her home. Our reverse mortgage expert, Jose Rodriguez, helped Alice secure a reverse mortgage so she can afford in-home health care and peacefully age in place. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit that website you know and love, 56david.com, lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
I want to take this moment to thank all of our sponsors. Minocqua Brewing Company, of course, you're hearing right now on the Up North podcast. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. I want to thank our friends at Pride Coffee Roasters. They'll be joining us at the Jefferson. Well, I'll be joining them at the Jefferson Park Sunday Market this Sunday at the Copernicus Center from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's Copernicus Center on Lawrence near Milwaukee. And we want to thank our friends at Source Solar. Go to source.solar, make an appointment, Peter Sorellis. And don't forget, viewers of CNN, you might be aware of Adam Mockler, the 23-year-old Gen Z political commentator who regularly blows up MAGA mouthpiece Scott Jennings out of the water. He's going to be at the Addison Township Democratic Organization hosting their 2026 legislative breakfast this Saturday, the 31st at the Itasca Country Club. Go to AddisonDemocrats.com. Let's go back to our podcast, the Up North podcast, with Simon and Kirk. Take it away, Kirk.
Okay, so in the last segment, we were talking about mutual aid, and I wanted to keep on. We're going to talk about what's happening in Wisconsin, particularly, and what Patty's hearing about in Chicago as we end the show. But I want to continue with this subject. So a lot of us aren't prepared to lose our jobs when we strike, but if we are going to strike, a lot of us will lose our jobs. So who are the organizations? Like, I'm guessing nurses, the SEIU, the nursing union, they're going to have to potentially think about providing health care for people for free. Not food, rent, healthcare, the stuff that if we lose a job and we're willing to sacrifice it all and just kind of take a flying leap and not know if we're going to be able to afford stuff, who's got to start getting together and figuring out, how to help these people, help us, the people that are going to be without work.
Unions have experience doing this already on picket lines. I mean, unions go out on strike all the time. And so there's some level of experience doing this at a micro scale. And so I'll say, if you were in Madison during the SEIU nurses strike, you saw mutual aid networks developing, whether it was food donations or support. People were dropping stuff off at the picket lines, and there was community calls that went out. And that stuff just gets built up at scale. And so in many places, it starts with unions that have experienced doing it. But as you saw in Minneapolis, it's churches, right? Churches often do coat drives or, community bake sales to raise some money. That kind of thing just scales up during an event like this. And I remember during 2020 and the George Floyd protests, I mean, a lot of it just became like a local small business became a hub. They opened their doors and people dropped stuff off. And we've talked about that in Minneapolis. So, I think this is something that we know how to do already as communities. We do it all the time, but we often get compartmentalized into this universe of like, you got to buy everything. And suddenly when the rules get thrown off by the people in power, suddenly we return to our ability to be community people, community organization. We're community beings, I think, naturally. So, yes, it can start with unions, but I think it scales up fairly naturally during these kinds of things. And the coordinated planning happens at a very micro local level.
Got it. Okay. Still want to figure out how to pay rent when that happens. I get the food, I get the healthcare, strike funds, right? How do I pay my rent? Or how do I pay my mortgage if I strike?
Yeah, there's a mutual aid hub that Minneapolis organizers created that had GoFundMes for folks who are in need of rent money. That's been the way that it's happened in Minneapolis. Now, as we scale nationwide, obviously, we can't have folks from New York City donating to folks in Minneapolis because folks in New York City need a roof over their heads. I think you're going to see mayors in progressive cities, for example, like taking some real action here. I think that's a point where we have to be organizing as a movement, not just as, folks outside the system. In California, like that's one of the largest economies in the world. California could support the entire United States if they needed to in a moment of crisis like that. And so we're going to have to start having those conversations about, as we scale this thing, how I shouldn't say that this is going to happen, right? Like a general strike, if everybody walks out, the most likely outcome is that we win and that most people don't lose their jobs because everybody's out and all the businesses are closed anyway. If it's smaller than that, that's where the risk comes in.
Right.
Patti.
Yep.
What are you hearing? So let's move to right now, today. What's the feeling on the ground? I mean, you're talking to people every single day.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people want a general strike, right? We hear that every day, whether it's my show or the other shows here on Progressive Talk. I think that a lot of people have the concerns that you're expressing, like how does that work? What would happen if I lost my job? I've talked to labor leaders who are a little bit more guarded with the information that they want to share right now, as far as the conversations that they're having and how that would unfold. I mean, that was where I learned a little bit more about how hard it would be with the restrictions under the Taft-Hartley Act. And I know that, in Chicago, there are a lot of organizations that are trying to ramp up. And I want to come back to the religious leaders because it does seem as though there are more religious organizations that are stepping into the fray. I mean, we saw over 100 religious leaders who were being arrested while they were praying on their knees in Minneapolis. And I hope that with the resources a lot of these organizations have, that they bring that to their communities and let them know we're going to do the best we can to support you if you put your livelihood on the line. I think that we need to have really strong conversations with them. But at this point, we're not. Look, my union, I'm not hearing a lot yet. My union is a SAG-AFTRA. I know that once we have bigger conversations with the other labor leaders in Chicago, but I know that there's a not just a hunger, but there's activity going on. They're trying to figure it out, but that's the most that was shared with me. And I would think that at some point we'll learn more. But that's the best I can do right now.
To give you a little insight into what's happening inside those rooms, I think, the unions in Minneapolis, part of the reason they called it an economic blackout was to avoid this sort of the potential for lawsuits and the potential for, and that's what we need to be doing, right? Like we can't just be like, oh, it has to be called a general strike in every corner of America, right? Like we got to build this thing with the folks who are in our corner. And frankly, unions are our most powerful engine for collective action in the economy. And so if we're not building with our unions, we're not going to have a general strike. Let me just be crystal clear about that.
Okay. So we want to make sure we get this out. You mentioned Voces de la Frontera, which is the group that's trying to protect immigrants, especially in Milwaukee, from ICE. You're talking with them. What are the next few things that are going to happen in Wisconsin, at least, or people are talking about that might lead to a structured test, which isn't a strike, but it's a organizing tool? What's coming down the pike in Wisconsin Simon?
Yeah, so Voces de la Frontera is an immigrant rights organization that was developed, over many years and has been advocating in communities for decades. And so they have a really strong reputation here in Wisconsin. And they have called for a May Day of action many of the last few years, but this year is particularly, they want to escalate towards the general strike and to shut things down on May Day. Now, there's going to be a No Kings protest before that. And the next No Kings was called for March. I'm trying to pull up the exact date.
28.
March 28th.
You know why I know that? Because we sell No Kings t-shirts. And I was like, yes. Now, I don't try to profit off of this stuff, but we got to fund ourselves somehow. We got to fund the Substack somehow. And I sell a lot of merchandise. And so I like it when I hear No Kings protests are happening.
And by the way, if you like my t-shirt, you can pick up something similar from the Minocqua Brewing Company.com page. Just saying. I hate Illinois Nazis. Yes.
Nice.
I hate all Nazis, but specifically Illinois ones because they're closer. Good.
Well, and we ripped that off because obviously that's from the Blues Brothers, and that took place in Chicago. Okay, Simon. So, what would a day of action look like? Would it look like what happened in Minneapolis on May Day?
I think it's going to be a lot more exciting than what happened in Minneapolis. And as exciting as Minneapolis was, I think a national day of action would look like an economic shutdown that affects the stock market. It affects the stability of the economy. It affects the US dollar internationally. It's meant to be a day of economic pain for the billionaires and the oligarchs that are causing this thing in the first place. And so I think what this would look like in communities is like a big No Kings protest, except that every business is closed. You're not going to the bar down the street after No Kings. You're not going to grab a hamburger afterwards because the businesses are shut down. It might look like everybody goes to a local park and has a picnic or something like that. It doesn't have to be so aggressive and militant and all this, but it is going to look like a day of shutdown. I think broadly what this is going to do is going to change people's mindset as to how they relate to a thing like No Kings. If No Kings in March is a structure test for us, what that means is we're going to have to count how many people participate and say, are you ready to take the next step with us? That's what we do in labor campaigns. Oftentimes we escalate tactics, whether it's somebody wears a button to work or wears a red shirt on Fridays. We count how many people show up. And if we don't have a majority, we go to the people who we need to bring in who did not participate in that day of action, and we pull them in for the next one. And so whether that's, a petition that everybody signs and delivers to the boss, we try to escalate. Each time has more participation, and it's a little riskier. It's a little higher temperature action until you build to the capacity to be able to strike. And so that's what we got to start doing now. I'm hopeful that the No Kings Day in March is a good, structure test about halfway between now and May. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take days of action in between, just like this Friday.
So a structure test to me, I love it that 7 million people marched in the last No Kings, but we just can't have another one of those, right? We have to kick it up a notch. To me, kicking it up a notch is like, okay, you're marching, but at the end of that march, you're signing up your name to be in a ward, that's going to do the mutual aid. You're going to be the one that helps with the health care. You're going to be the one that helps with the food. You're going to be the one that helps with the apartment paying. Like, where are you signing up after you march to make sure that we got everything covered, for the next stronger thing that we got to do? I mean, we have to move it forward, right? And who's going to do that? Is that going to be Indivisible? Is that going to be Voces de la Frontera? Who's going to be taking the, writing people's names down?
This is why I've been yapping all along about strike committees. I think strike committees are what does this, right? We get strike cards that we get people signed up on over the next 4 months, and that's the network. That's the way we pull them in. It's coalitions of organizations, but it's building that strike committee in your community that is laser focused on a strike for May Day. And that's going to include pulling all the folks who show up to a No Kings protest in, getting them on strike cards, getting them educated, because frankly, I don't think most people understand why a general strike is so different than No Kings and why economic and non-cooperative collective action is what's going to get us out of this. But I think that's why we build local strike committees. And I cannot emphasize enough, go do that. If you're an organizer, go. Right now, those are your marching orders.
Well done. That's amazing information. Again, that's Simon Rosenblum. Rosenblum Larson, and you can find him on all the social medias, on Twitter, on Twitch. Let's go to Twitch, everybody. Are we playing video games together? That's what we should do next. Can we do like GoldenEye from like the 90s? I can do that on Anyway, thank you so much.
You all at Mario Kart. Just ask my girlfriend.
Outstanding. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kirk Bangstad. That's the Up North podcast. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Be a paid subscriber and support the work that we do. Love you all. Have a great night, everybody. Take care. Go to strike meetings.
WCPT 820 will be hosting a candidate forum for the 3 leading candidates for Illinois' open United States Senate seat in the Democratic